We have major breaking news this evening. A political earthquake has occurred in the city of Miami, where Democrat Eileen Higgins has flipped the city of Miami mayor's seat for the first time in 3 decades, defeating Republican Emilio Gonzalez. This election was a stunning referendum on Trumpism in South Florida, an area that has been trending very quickly to the right. And as someone who is from South Florida, who worked in Miami politics before moving to Washington, D.C., I will tell you that this is as stunning of an upset as you could see in Florida politics, a state that has become reliably red in a county that had voted for Donald Trump in multiple election cycles in a row. Make sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Subscribe to my Substack by clicking the link to support my work. And it comes as we have another possible historic election in the state of Texas. And tonight I spoke with Jasmine Crockett, the current representative from Texas who is running for Senate, made that announcement this week. We spoke about these trends to the left we're seeing nationwide. We spoke about her contested primary, and we spoke about why she thinks she's the best person for the job to represent Texas in the United States Senate, how she's going to turn out voters that have never turned out before. But tonight, let me tell you something before we get to that interview. This Miami victory, Democrats are licking their chops because this is an area that Donald Trump won consistently. He won it in 2016, or rather, he won it in 2020. He won it in 2024. Ron DeSantis won it in 2022. Hillary Clinton won it in 2016, but it shifted. It's been shifting red historically. Why? Because Miami is a very heavy Cuban population, and Cubans tend to vote Republican. Well, Donald Trump has been good at turning them out, but today it didn't work. Eileen Higgins, the former county commissioner, who has been known as, quote, La Gringa, because she has appealed across party aisle or party affiliation. She will be the next mayor of Miami, replacing incumbent mayor Francis Suarez. Historic, historic, historic. Now I do want to jump right in. Let's talk to Jasmine Crockett about what this could mean for Texas. Super excited today to be joined by Jasmine Crockett, who is fresh off announcing her run for United States Senate in Texas. Congresswoman, how does it feel to be in the race for United States Senate?
I am already tired. And it's day one. No, but I'm excited. You know, just seeing the energy, whether it's online or whether it's just the interest leading up about the potential of my candidacy, or whether it's the text messages that I still haven't responded to. I'm excited because I think that people have been looking for and waiting for someone that they believe is going to fight for them. And so I'm ready to prove all the haters wrong and to get this done.
Well, I got to ask you, because there were some haters online talking ahead of your launch of, well, is she going to jump in? Is she not? You waited until about an hour and a half before filing deadline to jump in. What was the reason? Why did you jump in the race?
So there's a couple of things. Number one, I really did not want to take this lightly. And I did not have a lot of time. So there are people that try to plan out their whole political career. So they're like, I'm going to jump from this position to this position to this position because I'm trying to get to that one. That's not how I've ever operated. Instead, I've been called to positions, literally been called. My predecessor called me and said, hey, you should run for Congress and take my seat. When I was looking at the state house, this was another thing where it was like a matter of a calling on me. And that's what happened with the Senate race. Listen, I wasn't looking at that. I know that there's been a lot of discussion about how the guys got together and the guys were trying to figure out if they could build a slate. And a lot of people have been talking about the fact that I was not called into those conversations. Because to be perfectly honest, I never said, oh, I'm going to go to the U.S. House so then I can go to the U.S. Senate. That was never what it is. But I think that we have to recognize that we are living in some of the most dangerous times that we have seen, at least in our lifetimes, if not ever in this country. And so what's happened is that I feel like we have to have somebody that meets the moment, and is someone who is sitting on the federal level to sit there and say, well, it's good enough that I will be your voice, but that's pretty much all I can do in the House right now in a Trump presidency. When the Supreme Court decided at the last minute, if we want to talk about last minutes, the Supreme Court decided at the last minute that they would not allow the racist maps that have been put into place by the Texas House to be struck down after a Trump-appointed justice actually wrote a 160-page opinion as to why these maps were racist. That's when it was solidified for me. Because for me, I looked at it and I said, oh my God, there is no accountability for the Supreme Court when it comes to the House. It is the Senate that has the oversight over the Supreme Court. It is the Senate that confirms these justices. And ultimately, if there is ever an impeachment, it is the Senate that is going to have to find those convictions. And as a trained attorney, I sat there and thought, they have ruined our democracy for years just by stacking the court, a court that has no ethics over them whatsoever. So what do we need to do? We need to make sure that we change the numbers in the Senate. That's the reason DC doesn't have statehood. It's the reason that we don't have reproductive access. It's the reason that they were able to go through and do this mid-decade redistricting, because the bills were passed out of the House. We got the Freedom to Vote Act passed out the House. We got the John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act passed out of the House, but it was the Senate. Every time I feel as if something is going wrong, I can always point to the Senate. Same thing happened with Donald Trump. How many times was Donald Trump impeached? He was impeached twice. It was the Senate that failed to convict him. And where are we now? So for me, I can't say that I really want to be a public servant. And then knowing that I have the credentials, knowing that I'm looking at the numbers, and the numbers say that in this state that is majority minority, 61% people of color, and knowing that the numbers say that I perform the best with Latinos, I perform the best with African Americans, and knowing that Beto came the closest, whether we're talking about a moderate or a progressive, Beto is definitely considered a progressive. Mm-hmm. Beto came closest. And you know why? Because he did best with Black and Latino folk. And so at the end of the day, I could sit there and say, yes, God, I see all of this information in front of me, and I can see that this court is the one that is stopping us from having nice things, and just say I'm okay because I'm comfortable and I can be in the House. We are not in a comfortable moment. And so sometimes you have to step up and do what is uncomfortable if it means that you can effectuate real change.
Well, you mentioned that all boys club meeting that happened over the summer with one of your opponents, James Tallarico. Now, what do you say to a Texas voter who says, I've got a tough choice. I got two rising stars in front of me. I got Tallarico and I got Jasmine Crockett. Why am I supposed to support Jasmine Crockett?
Yeah, so I think this just comes down to experience. Right now, we know that we're living in an unprecedented time. We're living in a time in which I don't think anyone saw our foundation being broken the way that it's been broken. So number one, I think that my legal training is an advantage in this moment, because when we're starting to talk about almost anything that we can talk about that people are very frustrated about, whether it's the overreach on the tariffs, whether we're talking about the impoundment of congressional funds, to the extent that we know that hundreds of thousands of people have lost their lives because they decided to illegally impound USAID funds, or whether we're talking about the fact that ICE has decided that there is no due process for anyone, including U.S. citizens, right? They have decided that if we look at you and if you talk a certain way, then that's enough for us to take you into custody. And so we have a record number of not only deaths because they have been violating people's constitutional rights and using unwarranted force on people, but we also have an unprecedented amount of U.S. citizens that have been arrested. I think at this moment in time, for sure, we not only need someone who knows those very real stories, because I get the phone calls. I'm the one that gets the phone calls about people being concerned about their Social Security. I'm the one that gets the phone calls about whether or not their Medicaid or Medicare is going to go through. And so you want someone, at least in this moment, that has that experience. Obviously, I've worked on the state level as well, so I understand the differences between the two. And I can tell you that it was completely different coming to the federal level. And in this moment, I think experience is going to matter more than ever. I don't have anything bad to say about James Tallarico. I'm sure people want there to be some kind of fist fight, but I don't believe in that. My issue is with those on the other side. But there was a reason that I entered the race, and it wasn't because of James Tallarico. It was because of Jasmine Crockett. It was because of the numbers that showed that I have a path to actually winning, because I could build this diverse coalition, a diverse coalition that was required for any win that we saw on November 4th. And so it is going to be important for those people that historically it felt like nobody's talking to them, those people that I typically am able to actually break through and get to. It's important that we bring them in. The conversation keeps being about how are we going to get Republicans? Why isn't the conversation about going to our actual base and getting them out? Because at the end of the day, I'm a Democrat. So no matter how many Republican talking points I were to give, which I don't have very many for you, at the end of the day, when somebody shows up to the polls, they're going to see a D in front of my name. Mm-hmm. And I think that that is why we have been losing with this idea of we're going to get this mythical crossover, because at the end of the day, when they show up to the polls, they always see that there is a D in front of your name.
Well, so then how are you going to, for example, you have a voter in West Texas, in a rural county right outside of Lubbock. How are you going to turn out a Democrat or an independent in an area like that where they say, you know what, sometimes I agree with Trump?
Yeah, so let me tell you about that. And I'm going to make sure I get my cell phone too, because I want to read to you an email that I got from an actual Republican, because I want to be clear about a few things about this Republican crossover. Number one, I lived in rural East Texas. That is actually where my political career began. So I am the person that understands, and it's not theoretical. It's not a matter of, I think this is what you're supposed to say to rural America. In fact, the very first home that I ever purchased, it still sits to this day in rural East Texas. I also want to be clear about the fact that not only was I living in East Texas, but I was practicing law all throughout all of these rural counties. And I was having to convince juries. So I've had these conversations. This isn't new for me. I've had these conversations, and I understand the struggle when they say, hey, the tire plant may be shutting down and what that does to the economy. I know what it is to wake up and smell the paper plant and wonder, what is this going to potentially do to my body? I know what it is when you don't have the specialists that you need in the medical field right there, and you have to drive hours so that you can get to the big city known as Dallas so that you can see a specialist. I understand exactly what happens in rural America because I have lived in rural Texas, in addition to serving on the agriculture committee. I am the person. Now, I don't know if James has ever been on a farm and been on a tractor trailer, but I done this. Okay. So, but I've had those very real conversations. And it's one of those reasons that I'm consistently talking about farmers and their struggles, because I served on the agriculture committee. And so I was constantly in communication with them. And so I think that I think there's more perception than there is reality. I can tell you that I've been getting all kinds of text messages from South Texas, from East Texas, where they are excited and they're like, we can't wait to see our girl. Tell us what we can do to help out, because they know me. But I also received an email, and I won't read it because I don't know that I'm going to be able to find it in time. But I received this email, and it was from a gentleman who is a Republican. And this was before it was public whether or not I was actually going to be running for the Senate. And his message to me was, please run. And he said, my party has lost their way, but I believe that you have, in short, a sense of moral clarity that we need in this moment. And he said, you're strong, and I believe in the things that you are doing. He said, now, I don't agree with you on everything, but I think that you would make a fine senator. The reality is that was one email, but I've had those experiences take place consistently, whether it's been in airports or whatnot. And when people ask me about Trumpers, I was getting on a plane leaving from Houston recently because Christian Menifee is my choice for CD 18. And so I had been in Houston campaigning on behalf of Christian. And I get on a plane. This gentleman starts running up, skipping people in line, trying to get to me, and was like, can we please get a selfie? Now, this was a Black immigrant who wanted to make clear to me that he actually is a Trumper, and that he told me I should be nicer to Trump. But anyway, he told me he was a Trump supporter, but he told me that he loved me. And it reminded me of what I feel like we've been missing in general. I think that Democrats have gotten so much in their head that they play this 3D chess and they get it wrong. They think that this just comes down to policy, and then they scratch their heads and say, how do we have Mondami Trump voters? How do we have Obama Trump voters? How do we have AOC Trump voters? Now, what we've seen is that Mondami never changed who he was. What we've seen is that AOC has never changed who she is. What we saw is that Obama still is who he is. Yet there are people that have voted for both. And so I don't think that it's as simple to distill it down to policy. I think this comes down to credibility, which is why we see attacks that are constantly coming in, and they are trying to attack my credibility and my rapport with the people. Because if people trust you, then they are more likely to vote for you, because they know that you may literally be making a life or death decision on their behalf.
Now, Congressman, I just got one final question for you before I let you go, and that is, I want to get your response to one of your Republican opponents, Senator Cornyn, who's running for re-election, may not win. He said that he called you a grifter, and he said that he was hardly hiding his glee. What do you say to Senator Cornyn?
Okay, I love the shade that you just threw. Yeah, baby, you need to focus on your own race. I'm just saying, you're the one that is absolutely going to a runoff. That part I do know. Second of all, I mean, I know that like Senator Cornyn wants to project this angst and hate against me, but I'm going to just say, go look at the receipts. You know, I disagree with the senator on a lot of policy decisions, but I have to be perfectly honest. The Republicans have used it against him that I actually have never really had bad things to say about him. Obviously, we disagree. And so I say bad things about the things that he's done, but he doesn't have Trump's endorsement. And so right now he's flailing. He has been a normal Republican. And right now that is not wanted in this party. And so I get that the senator right now feels like he's got to do this so he can feel like he's MAGA. But just look at the record. Yes, he's been voting with Trump a lot here recently. But the reality is that Senator Cornyn has consistently worked across the aisle. And I can say that, and I can say that I've worked with Senator Cornyn. I can tell you that he has never been attitudinal towards me in person whatsoever. In fact, he's always been friendly towards me. And frankly, if he does make it through this primary, I still plan to be friendly towards him. Because at the end of the day, I'm going to be real with you and tell you that this has nothing to do with me or Cornyn. It has everything to do with Texas. It has everything to do with our democracy in this country. In fact, I have said over and over that this is bigger than Texas. This is about who we are going to be and what our future will look like. This seat in and of itself has the power to flip power in the Senate. That flips it for the entire country. And that's why in this campaign, because of the work that I've done, not only in my state, but I have done outside of the state on behalf of people everywhere from Pennsylvania to North Carolina to Michigan to California to Florida to all throughout the country, Arizona and more. I've been calling. So, you know, when people are like, what were you doing? I was making phone calls. I was making phone calls to make sure that this wasn't going to be me by myself. That there was going to be people that were saying, you know what, we were happy that you came and you helped us out when it came down to Prop 50. We were happy that you came and helped us out to make sure that we could retain those judges in Pennsylvania. We were happy that you came to Virginia to make sure that we could have a Governor Spanberger. We were happy about that. And we agree, Congresswoman, we've got your back. And so our teams that have organized on the ground in our states, we've got your back, and we're going to organize and we're going to help you in Texas. So we are not just going to rely on those that are right here at home. We are trying to bring everybody into this fight because this is a fight literally for everybody in this country.
Congresswoman, thanks so much for joining me and good luck.
Thank you.
Hey folks, Aaron Parnas here. Thank you so much for watching The Parnas Perspective. Please consider subscribing to support our work as we grow this independent news media entity into something that rivals mainstream every single day. Thanks so much, and I'll see you soon.